Hi everyone, my name is Soliday, and today in this presentation right now, I am going to be discussing a little bit about what is the comparison between the two definitions of flipped classroom versus traditional classroom. And basically, I will be, talking a little bit and summarizing the main ideas from these weekly readings, and then, put in a little bit of my thoughts onto the readings and, whether I think this teaching method is effective or not. So let's get started. Okay, so this is a summary of the findings. I will be going in depth after I mention all of the bullet points that we're going to be discussing about. So the first one is learning before the class. Okay, and then active learning during class, more engagement, student participation matters. So, what I really mean by these bullet points is that students are very encouraged students are encouraged to read the materials, watch the lecture videos before coming into class. That means by the time that by the time that they arrived at school and they come into the classroom, once they watch all of the lecture materials and all the videos, they are able to solve problems, so they can use those class time to solve problems with their classmates. So if you run into any problems, like, you can actually discuss those problems and solutions with your classmates. That improve a lot of interactions within students, and it allows students to be more engaging. And so that is actually very satisfying in flipped classrooms than in a traditional classroom, because they had more opportunities to interact in general with their classmates and teachers. And also, like, the study with basically the study from the weekly reading also mentioned that flipped classrooms can improve learning, but only when students are actually like participating in it. Okay, so now traditional versus flipped. So starting with the traditional learning, it's mostly when it comes to traditional learning, we all are pretty familiar with it. Traditional learning it involves a lot of teacher being around, meaning the teacher will be giving a lot of lectures during class time, and then the students will be able to take those homework assignments back home and they actually complete it at their own time. And so with and then in comparison to flip classroom, students will learn the basic materials on their own first before coming into classroom, and then they will use the classroom time to kind of like do class activities in order to improve the interactions between students, and also for the professors and the teachers to kind of understand where, like, the gap kind of fills up between each students. And class time is basically, it's being spent on asking questions, solving problems, and just kind of like working with classmates. And that actually allows the teachers to spend more time helping students instead of kind of like only just giving a bunch of lectures. And yeah. Okay, well, my reactions in general, I feel like it really just depends on the students. It depends on each individual students, meaning my experience, I find reviewing basic materials before coming to classroom is very, very helpful, because that allows me to kind of get my brain a little bit familiarized with what I am going to be getting exposed into. So by the time that I come into the classroom and the professor giving a little bit of the lecture, I am able to absorb a little bit more deeply into what what professor is talking about, versus coming into the classroom and then just kind of like, straightforwardly listening to the professor's lecture. I think it can be very confusing if the topic or the material in general is a little bit confusing, but it really just depends on basically the intelligence of each student. But I think for me, my reaction is that when you come into the classroom with a at least a little bit 20% of what the professor will be talking about, I think it is going to help you understand and kind of like easy for you to gauge um basically the learning materials. So I believe that flipped classroom has a lot of benefits, and students can watch videos whenever they want and replay the difficult parts if they don't really understand something. And, during class time, when they come in, they have more opportunities to ask any questions, which you know, they they can ask, and they can work with other people to solve the problems. So that is very beneficial. But but however, I also understand why some students resist this method. I think if the students don't watch the videos before the class time, they may not be prepared for the activities. And I think this teaching style works best if the students are responsible and are very motivated to complete the work before coming to class. And basically, in conclusion, I would say I think the flipped classroom is such a useful teaching method, but it encourages students to actually put more effort into their own time before coming to the classroom. And it also it also encourages students to be a little bit more attentive and more, being able to participate with their classmates in order to solve problems if there are any class activities published or established by the professor or the teacher. So the research shows that it can increase engagement and satisfaction, but it also depends on the students preparing for the class. And when teachers and students both do their part, the flipped classroom can create a more interactive and meaningful learning experiences. So, yeah, so that's a little bit about my thoughts. So, thank you so much for listening.